The floors of Jefferson High School gleamed every morning, not because of the students or the teachers, but because of one quiet boy with a mop. Darius Reed, 17, worked part-time as a janitor after classes. He moved through the empty halls each evening, earbuds in, humming to himself, as he swept up the mess other students left behind. It wasn't the life he wanted, but it was the life he had. His mom worked 2 jobs, and every paycheck went toward rent and groceries. When the school offered Darius a janitor's position through a student work program, he took it without hesitation. Hey, work hard, stay humble, his mom always said. But not everyone saw it that way. Yo, Darius, someone called from down the hallway one afternoon. You missed a spot. A group of seniors, football players, burst out laughing as Darius turned, holding his mop. He smiled faintly, refusing to rise to the bait. Don't worry, he said calmly. I'll get it. They laughed harder. Man, I can't believe you cleaned this place after school. You should be playing ball with us, not scrubbing the floors. Darius kept working. Maybe I'm just cleaning my future, he said softly. That only made them laugh louder. When the janitor's shift ended, Darius stayed behind, sitting on the bleachers of the empty gym. He looked up at the cracked ceiling tiles and whispered to himself, one day, I'll own this place. Just watch. He didn't mean it as a fantasy. He meant it as a promise. Outside of school, Darius was more than a janitor. He had a sharp mind for business and a passion for technology. At night, after homework and cleaning shifts, he taught himself online courses in coding, finance, and real estate. He read everything he could about money, how it moved, how people built it, and how they lost it. By his senior year, Darius had launched a small online tutoring business for struggling students. It wasn't much, but it brought in steady income. Then, he used that money to start flipping used laptops, buying broken ones cheap, fixing them, and reselling them online. Within 2 years, he had saved enough to start investing in small properties, tiny, forgotten homes in old neighborhoods. Everyone at school still saw him as the janitor kid. But Darius was quietly building something much bigger. One afternoon, while mopping the cafeteria floor, he overheard 2 teachers talking. The district's selling this old building next year, one said. They're moving the school to a new campus. Darius froze. His mind started racing. How much? He asked quietly. The teacher blinked. Oh, I don't know. Probably cheap. The building's ancient. Why? Darius smiled to himself. No reason. That night he went home and pulled up every document he could find on the property. Old listings, district reports, market values. He studied them all. And for the next 2 years, while the world moved on, Darius didn't stop grinding. He worked, he saved, he invested. And when Jefferson High went up for sale, the same building where he'd once been mocked for holding a mop, Darius Reed walked into the bank not as a janitor, but as a buyer. By the time Darius turned 19, everything had changed, except the way people underestimated him. He still wore simple clothes, still spoke softly, still moved with the same quiet confidence that people mistook for timidity. But behind the calm exterior was a young man who had learned the game of money faster than anyone expected. He'd turned his laptop repair hustle into a small company called Reed Tech, and he was earning more in a month than most of his former classmates made in a year. Every dollar he saved, he reinvested in old homes, in online ventures, and finally, in a small investment group that specialized in buying public properties. One crisp fall morning, Darius got an email that made him freeze mid-sip of coffee. Property. Jefferson High School. Listed for auction by City District. Starting bid, $550,000. His heart raced. The same halls he used to mop were now for sale. He called his financial advisor, barely containing his excitement. I want it, he said, all of it. The advisor laughed softly. That's sentimental money talking, Darius. It's an old building. What would you even do with a school? I'll show you, Darius replied. The auction took place 2 weeks later in a quiet municipal office. Investors, developers, and property managers filled the room. Darius walked in wearing a tailored navy suit. No mop, no janitor's uniform, just confidence. When the bidding began, it was fierce at first. Developers saw the land's potential for condos or warehouses, but Darius kept his focus. Every time the auctioneer's gavel rose, he raised his paddle. Calm, precise. 570,600, 650. Bids started to slow. One by one, competitors dropped out. And then, finally, sold, the auctioneer declared, his gavel cracking against the podium. To Mr. Darius Reed. Applause broke out across the small room. Darius stood, shook the auctioneer's hand, and smiled quietly. The janitor had just bought his school. 2 months later, Jefferson High reopened its doors under a new name, the Reed Center for Innovation and Learning. Darius had transformed the decaying building into a community hub, a place where kids could learn coding, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy for free. The old classrooms now had modern computers, new paint, and open spaces filled with life again. Word spread quickly, and soon, reporters and former teachers started showing up. Among them were a few of his old classmates, the same ones who had laughed at him years ago. "Bro," one of them whispered, jaw-dropping, "is that Darius, the janitor?" But it was. Only this time, he wasn't sweeping floors. He was standing on stage, addressing the crowd with a microphone in hand. "When I was a student here," he began, his voice steady, "people laughed when I said I wanted to own this place. They thought working hard made me small. But hard work doesn't make you small. It builds the ground you stand on." The audience went silent. Even his former teachers watched with pride and awe. "I bought this building," Darius continued, "not to show off, but to prove a point. Where you start doesn't define where you'll finish. And sometimes, the kid with the broom ends up holding the keys." The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. A few people wiped tears. Standing in the back of the crowd was the old head janitor, Mr. Lewis, the man who'd first hired Darius for after-school work. He smiled proudly and gave a small nod. Darius caught his eye and smiled back, the same quiet, humble grin he'd worn years ago. But this time, he wasn't cleaning someone else's floors. He was building a future on his own. By the summer that followed, the Reed Center for Innovation had become a local phenomenon. Kids who once dreaded the old Jefferson High now rushed through its refurbished doors every morning, laptops in hand and dreams in their eyes. The same cracked gym ceiling Darius had stared at years ago was now lined with LED panels. The same hallway he used to mop gleamed under new lighting, and his name on the wall. Darius sat in his glass-walled office one afternoon, reviewing grant proposals when the front desk buzzed. "There's someone here to see you," said his assistant. "He says you two went to school together." Darius looked up. "Send him in." The door opened, and in walked Trey Johnson, the former football star who used to tease him the most. He looked different, tired, older, but still carrying that old swagger under a layer of guilt. "Yo, Darius," he said awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Man, this place is wild. You really did it." Darius smiled calmly. "Hey, Trey, long time." "Yeah," Trey said, glancing around. "I saw the news segment about this center. I came to see if maybe you were hiring." Darius raised an eyebrow. "You want to work here?" "Yeah," Trey admitted, lowering his eyes. "I got laid off last year. Tried a few things that didn't pan out. Figured maybe I could help out. I used to coach kids, you know?" For a moment, Darius said nothing. He remembered every joke, every smirk, every missed a spot. But then he remembered his mother's voice. "Don't let bitterness own you. Let it teach you." Finally, he said, "We could use another mentor. Someone good with kids." Trey looked up, surprised. "Really? After all the crap I said to you?" Darius nodded slowly. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow. I got mine. Now, it's your turn." Trey's eyes glistened as he nodded. "Thank you, man. For real." Over the months that followed, Trey became one of the most dedicated mentors at the center. He worked closely with students who struggled, especially those from rough neighborhoods, using his own story as proof that life could turn around. One afternoon, he caught Darius watching a group of kids learning to code. "You know," Trey said, "back in school, I thought cleaning floors was beneath me, but now I get it. You were just building your foundation." Darius smiled. "Exactly. And now, you're helping others build theirs." They stood in silence for a moment, watching a boy excitedly finish his first computer program. The child turned around, shouting, "Mr. Reed, it worked!" Darius grinned, giving him a thumbs up. I told you, kid. Nothing's impossible if you keep showing up. Later that evening, after the last student left, Trey turned to Darius. You could have rubbed all this in my face, you know. Darius shook his head. No point. The best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's proving yourself right. Trey nodded thoughtfully. You did that. Darius smiled softly, glancing up at the shining lights that now filled the halls he once mopped in silence. We both did, he said. And as the night fell over the city, the Reed Center glowed like a symbol, not just of success, but of redemption, of transformation, of grace earned and given. Because Darius Reed hadn't just bought a building. He'd built a legacy, one that started with a broom and ended with an open door. Years later, the story of Darius Reed had become legend in the city, from janitor to investor, from student to founder. The Reed Center for Innovation had expanded into 5 cities, each one built inside a refurbished public building that others had written off as worthless. Everywhere he went, people wanted to meet him, to shake his hand, to hear his secret. But Darius never forgot where it all began. On the 10th anniversary of the center, he returned to the original Jefferson High building, now completely transformed, full of students, entrepreneurs, and mentors. The gymnasium that once echoed with laughter at his expense was now decorated with banners that read, 10 years of change. He stood backstage before his speech, straightening his tie. Across the curtain, he could hear the audience murmuring, city officials, teachers, alumni, and hundreds of students. But his eyes focused on the front row, where his old boss, Mr. Lewis, now retired, sat smiling proudly. When the host called his name, the applause was thunderous. Darius stepped onto the stage, the same floor he'd once scrubbed clean, and took a slow breath. I used to push a mop across this gym, he began, his voice steady. Back then, people laughed at me. They thought hard work meant failure. But I learned something important, that when you take pride in small things, you're preparing for big ones. The audience listened in silence. I didn't buy this building to make a statement, he continued. I bought it because I wanted to show kids that no dream is too far out of reach. You just have to build from the ground up, even if the ground is dirty. The crowd erupted in applause again, some cheering, some wiping their eyes. After the speech, Trey found him backstage. Man, he said with a grin, you sure know how to make people cry. Darius laughed. That's not my goal. I just want them to believe they can rewrite their own story. Trey nodded. You already did. And now everyone else believes they can too. Later that evening, as the event ended, Darius walked alone through the quiet hallways. He paused by the janitor's closet, the one he used to hide in during breaks, dreaming about the future. The old metal door was still there, repainted but unchanged. He smiled, touched the handle, and whispered, "Thank you." Outside, the city skyline glowed beneath a purple sunset. Kids played basketball in the renovated court, their laughter echoing against the walls that once heard only mockery. Darius stood watching them, hands in his pockets, content. He no longer needed to prove anything. He'd already done it, not with revenge or pride, but with purpose. And as he walked away from the building, his reflection shimmered faintly in the glass door, beneath the bold white letters that read, "The Reed Center for Innovation, built by hand, powered by hope." Because Darius Reed hadn't just changed his life. He'd changed what people believed was possible when humility meets ambition. 5 years later, the Reed Center for Innovation wasn't just a single building anymore. It was a movement. Across the country, new centers had opened under Darius's guidance, each one offering free education and mentorship to underprivileged youth. His story had become a modern legend, not just about wealth or success, but about resilience, forgiveness, and faith in possibility. On a warm spring morning, Darius stood in the courtyard of the original Jefferson building. The sun reflected off the polished glass windows that now replaced the old cracked ones. A new group of high school students gathered around him for orientation, bright-eyed, nervous, curious. Some clutched notebooks. Others held laptops donated by his foundation. He looked at them and saw pieces of himself. Kids from small apartments, from single-parent homes, from neighborhoods. People forgot. "Good morning," he said, his deep, calm voice commanding quiet. When I was your age, I worked here. I cleaned these floors after everyone went home. People laughed at me, but I learned something important. No job is too small when your dream is big enough. The students listened closely, hanging on every word. You'll face people who doubt you, Darius continued. They'll see where you are and assume that's all you'll ever be. But if you stay focused, if you learn, if you build, one day you'll walk back into the places that underestimated you and you'll own them. Applause broke out. Cameras flashed. Local news had come to cover his speech. But Darius didn't look at them. His focus was on the students. Afterward, one young girl lingered behind as the crowd dispersed. She was shy, maybe 15, holding a tattered backpack. Mr. Reed? She asked softly. Is it really true you used to be a janitor here? He smiled. Every day after school. Her eyes widened. Then maybe I can do it too. I want to be an engineer. But my mom says dreams like that cost too much. Darius crouched slightly to meet her gaze. Dreams don't cost too much. People just stop believing they're worth the price. She nodded, her eyes bright. I won't stop. He smiled and gently tapped the lanyard she wore, the one that read, Reed Center Student. Then you're already halfway there. That evening, Darius walked through the hallways alone. On the wall near the main office hung a framed photo, a much younger him in his janitor uniform, mop in hand, smiling faintly. Underneath it was a quote he'd chosen himself. Start where you are. Use what you have. Build what they said you couldn't. He stopped to look at it for a moment. Not with pride, but gratitude. Trey approached quietly, now director of operations. You still keep that photo up, huh? Darius chuckled. It reminds me that success doesn't erase where you came from. It gives it meaning. Trey nodded. So, what's next? Darius looked out through the tall windows, where the city lights shimmered. Next, he said thoughtfully, we keep building. Not just buildings, people. Because one day, one of these kids will walk through those doors and do something even greater than this. As the last light of day faded over the city, the building glowed, not as a monument to one man's rise, but as a lighthouse for anyone who had ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told to stay in their place. For Darius Reed, it was never about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving that hope, when planted deep enough, grows into something unshakable. And in those shining halls that once echoed with laughter and doubt, the sound of new dreams taking flight was the sweetest music of all.